Good morning to all our YLC members joining us digitally today. Even to you, future member, a good morning. On behalf of the YLC Digital Conversations team for today, that is Ms. Zintle Ramano, Ms. Rifilo Ligodzi, Ms. Lerato Matebula, and I, Boniswa Matigizela, welcome you to our conversations. And remember, these are hosted every month and where we endeavor to make you a better version of yourself. Self-mastery requires self-care, and not only from a professional perspective, but from a health perspective too. If you want to share the conversation of today on your social media, our hashtag is digital conversations, and we will also be tweeting live. All right, without wasting much time. Ladies, for most millennial women, the answer has been to delay having children to a later time in life while they pursue career aspirations. Women in most developed and developing countries are waiting, with the average first birth happening for new mothers at age 31. The pressure to start a family is overwhelming, and for many millennial women who have spent the last decade focused on building their career in the wake of the 2008 recession, this is a complex dynamic which is rendered even more complex by the unique infertility conditions and concerns which women face from beginning of from the beginning of their late 30s. Many reproductive alternatives exist to women who choose to embark on the journey to motherhood later in their lives. However, these and other associated risks inherent to pregnancy later in life is often not well communicated to women in order to make an informed decision which aligns to their choice of lifestyle. Further, the societal and workplace stigma, which is sometimes attached to women who make such a choice, is often unfavorable. In today's conversation, we focus on infertility risks which are confronted by women who choose to have children later in life and the reproductive alternatives available to them. Rifilo Ligodzi, kindly introduce to us the two remarkable women that are joining us today.
Thank you very much, Bonnie. My job is actually very simple this morning. I'm just going to introduce our very esteemed panelists. I'd like to start with Dr. Q. Dr. Q, as she's affectionately known, is a fertility specialist who runs her own practice called Family Matters Fertility Center. Dr. Q has been practicing both obstetrics and gynecology at Netcare Unitas Hospital in Centurion. While she has immense passion for both these fields, Dr. Q has gained a special interest in infertility and endocrinology. She did her fellowship at Steve Biko Academic Hospital and started her master's in philosophy in reproductive medicine at the University of Pretoria, completing it and her certification in reproductive medicine and endocrinology through the Colleges of Medicine South Africa in 2019. Our second panelist, Dr. Selina Ramatsoso. She's currently a specialist obstetrician and gynecologist in private practice. She's the former director at the Birthing Team Johannesburg. Her prior experience includes a medical officer in obstetrics and gynecology at the Charlotte Maxeke Johannesburg Hospital and a senior lecturer in obstetrics and gynecology at the University of the Witwatersrand. She also holds an MB-CHB from the Nelson Mandela School of Medicine in KwaZulu-Natal and a diploma from the College of Medicine. She obtained her FCOG from the same institution in 2011. Now, I don't know about you, Bonnie, but I feel very excited and I feel like I'm in really good hands to actually unpack this topic. Thank you, and very welcome to the both of you doctors. I'm going to hand over to Bonisa to actually start the facilitation.
Thank you so much, Refilwe, for introducing our panelists. Doctors, your bios are impeccable, and I'm sure they don't do justice to the work you do and the adversities, the trials, the tribulations, and the triumphs that you have come across when it comes to reproductive health issues amongst your patients. So for me, as a start, I would say let's go to basics. What is reproductive health? And I would like for each of you to respond to that. I would like to start with Dr. Selina Ramazzoso. In your own words, what is reproductive health? Mute. Can you, yeah, muted.
You hear me?
You
Can
can
you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I had to mute and unmute again. Morning, everyone, and thank you so much for the opportunity. It's always good to have a group of women talking about women stuff. It's always like, it brings a happiness to say we as women need to be in charge of ourselves and know ourselves better than anyone else. So this is a very good platform to put that out. Thank you so much, Bonnie, for the question. And I always try and simplify things. In my simple way of explaining it is reproductive health is everything pertaining to the well-being of a woman from the minute that they are born. But in this case, at the moment that they're in their reproductive years, meaning from puberty all the way, taking them through the reproductive years, and there are times when they're supposed to be actively having babies, all the way to menopause and beyond. So anything health-wise pertaining to that, their well-being mentally, their well-being physically, and all the holistic approach in taking care of the woman. And that's me simplifying it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Selina. Dr. Q?
Yes, darling. Okay,
So
I think
in your own words, what would you say reproductive health is?
I think Dr. Selena has put it actually quite well. Simplified, it is everything that involves a woman's health from birth all the way to puberty and all the way to child making, which is between the years of 15 to 45. And after that, we also deal with issues of menopause. So as long as a woman is alive, she has a reproductive health aspect of her. So that's just simply put reproductive health.
Thank you very much for that, doctors. All right. Now, I like what you're saying, because reproductive health, so from when I'm born up until I die, it's the health of those organs, if I should say, that will ensure that I bring an offspring to this world. But then, I don't know with you, but from a very young age, my mom always told me that you must protect against falling pregnant. So we focus a lot in our early years, let's say the 20s, on not falling pregnant. And the basic ways of doing it is all the pills and the injections and all those things. Then all of a sudden, I get to my 30s, and then now there's a struggle to fall pregnant. What went wrong? What is the issue? I thought I am born to be, because I'm female, therefore I should be able to just give birth. What actually goes wrong? I think that's what I would like to know, because I am healthy, am I not? Dr. Q?
And I think that's the struggle of a lot of women. Firstly, you are told growing up, sex is a bad thing. You should abstain from sex and avoid falling pregnant. Then when women then start being in relationships, they've got issues, even with sexual intercourse, because this thing used to be so badly stigmatized, and now women suffer with issues of vaginismus where the sexual organs just shut, and there's issues with penetration and all of that. And besides that, once you even are able to overcome that, only to find that you are not able to fall pregnant. So maybe I can start by defining exactly what infertility is. And when can a person then be concerned or say that, yes, they have infertility issues or they've got issues with falling pregnant. A lot of couples, they try for 3 months and then they see themselves as a failure, you know. So we just need to ease some people's anxiety at first. And for others, we need to give them a wake-up call to say, look, you need to have started investigating this issue or seeking help as far as this is concerned. So if a couple has been trying to fall pregnant, meaning if a couple has had what we call regular intercourse, and I always ask people, what is regular intercourse? They're like, no, we have sexual intercourse regularly. What is regular? Is it 3 times a day, you know, or once a month, or what exactly is regular? So we need couples to say or ensure that at least they've been trying to have intercourse every alternate day, or we say 3 times a week. So that is regular. So if a couple has been having sexual intercourse at least 3 times a week without any contraception, meaning no condom, no injections, no pills, nothing, okay? If they've been trying or practicing that for at least 12 months, or a year. So if a year goes by, you are not on any form of contraception and you are having adequate sexual intercourse, which is at least 3 times a week or every alternate day, and you have not fallen pregnant, that is a call for concern. So that is what we call infertility, or that's when we say you are struggling to conceive. So maybe just to brush that out, we've got, even as you said, that we're now working, we're in our 30s, couples who are in long distance relationships and they see each other at month end, or, you know, getting weekend special, and people, you know, still are thinking it's going to be easy. You know, you think you just open your legs and baby pops, you know, and unfortunately, it's not that easy. People will be driving their BMs, their Porsches, and there'll be a woman with 3 kids on the street asking her for money, begging with kids on the street, knocking on their doors. And Bonaka more, they are struggling to conceive. Unfortunately, that's the society we live in. There's a Zulu saying that says, "Ithanga lihlanzela abangenamabhodwe." That's how they feel. You know, you find lots of pumpkins in the homes of those who don't even have pots. Havana the AMC pots or these German pots that were now your conventional pots that you are keeping in your home, but banally butternut, we're not dollar, you know, in your mansion. So it's quite sad, and it's something that we really need to talk about and open the can, even if it's worms. Let's go through them and see what is it exactly that we can unpack and what options are there that are available for you to get assistance. Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Q. I mean, yeah, I agree that, I mean, what you're saying, young ones, we focus a lot on career progression, which is good, you know, and it doesn't mean that we don't want to have kids, but somewhere, somehow, now you have achieved, you know, economically, and then you're like, the one thing that makes me feel like a woman, I can't get, you know. So, Dr. Selina, I mean, you run your own practice, and I know that you come across a lot of women patients that come to you, and maybe they come in to say, I'm here for a pap smear. But can you share with us your experiences when it comes? Can I have mute off? Yeah. Can we share your experiences with us when it comes to the professional women that come across your desk? Like, just take us through what happens. Thank you. You are mute again. You are mute again.
Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay. I mean, I can't, without repeating Dr. Quinisile's story, you can reiterate. The issue is always the woman comes in and she has ticked the boxes. You know, when a woman says, Doc, I've ticked the boxes. I've done the schoolwork, I've gotten my house, I've gotten my car, and now I've met the man. So where's the baby? And unfortunately, that is exactly, and then I'm supposed to somehow miraculously make this baby come. And it is an everyday occurrence. The average woman comes in, she's 33, she's 34, she's just stopped her contraception, and she's kind of like, why isn't this happening? And without literally repeating anything, remember, we have to look at the whole spectrum. I don't know your current health. People arrive at the gynae, they've never seen any other doctor before. They've never actually checked their well-being generally. So in going back to basics, the history taking of it is important. How old are you? Have you been pregnant before? You know how women have fallen pregnant and have had terminations, but they don't necessarily tell you such things. So you need to go back to the root of today when you arrive. What are the things that would factor in you assuming you are infertile? Because most women wear the label without actually knowing the definition. And that is why Dr. Kunitsla's definition is very important. If today you are not having regular sex without, and also just to add on, in the right hole, regular sex without contraception in the right hole for a year, and you are not falling pregnant, now you qualified for us to say you have what we call primary infertility, and you fall into that bracket. So a lot of sometimes it's more labeling, and sometimes it's more, for me, according to my timetable, the baby must now come now because I've done everything else. And now you have to unpack that for each person. What do you smoke? Do you drink? Do you exercise? What is healthy to you? Are you overweight? Are you having regular periods? And do you know what a cycle is? If you had to try and fall pregnant, do you know when is the best time? So that education happens every other patient, where you go back to basics and say, this is how a period works. This is how the regularity of a period works. So if you're having it here, are you having heavy period? How do you quantify heavy period? So you've just opened a huge can of worms. So I arrive and that person comes to me and I have to unpack all of that before I say, ma'am, now you qualify to go to Dr. Qinisile, who's the fertility specialist. Because first you need to do some work. What have you used? How long have you used it? Have you been treated for any STI? Am I assuming that there's any other issues? Are you having regular sex? Are you enjoying it? Is it a chore for you? Is it stressful for you to have sex? So all of that needs to be unpacked. Then once that has been established and all the basics have been done, then you can start labeling people as infertile. I hope that I had summarized.
Thank you so much, Dr. Selina. Yes, you have summarized. And, you know, especially us as professional women, Sincwadile too much, if I can use the word. And we think we can diagnose ourselves and go to Dr. Google, you know, to say this and this and this and this. I think what I would like to also just go in a little bit more into is how much of us choosing career over childbearing actually impacts. I know you've given the definition of what infertility is, but the stresses in today's age that come with the careers that we're in, I wonder how much of this cortisol, do we call it cortisol, that gets released in our system because we are always on a fight or flight or survival mode. How much of that, I would like to know, I guess that's the science behind, how much of that toxin in our system does impact or maybe contribute, let me say impact, but contribute to the situations that the women find themselves today. Dr. Q? You are still on mute.
Okay, sorry, darling. There we go. I just want to introduce a big term, and I'm going to break it down. And it's just a way of answering your question. It's a terminology called hypothalamic amenorrhea. Okay. And it is the absence of menses due to hormone disorder, which is associated with the brain. So this one is actually stress related, and it's excessive exercise related, and it is also associated with an eating disorder, which we call anorexia. So the mnemonic that one would use as a student to remember it is the sea, the ocean that I'm seeing right now as I'm on holiday. When I open my window, I just see the beautiful ocean. So but the other one now, of seeing, or if you look at the C, SEA, so it's stress. The S is for stress, and the E is for excessive exercise, and the A is for anorexia. Okay, so I just want to bring about the stress part of it, and to say, you know, when we are stressed, the body gets into a fight or flight mode, where then it releases the hormones, and the gland that we call the adrenal gland gets excessively worked up to try and help you to fight and get enough energy to meet that deadline, get enough energy to attend to other issues, do that shopping, get your grocery list, attend that Zoom meeting or Google Meets or whatever, push until 1 a.m., wake up at 6, get all of that. So your body gets worked up because that's your priority at that moment in time. But then it goes on, as this cortisol is increasing, it has a negative effect on the reproductive hormones. And then it goes on and shuts them down because that's not important right now. Duh. Who wants to have an orgasm right now? You know, and then it just, you know, so you on the fight mode, and then the reproductive hormones actually go down and down and down, and then your body then just shuts down reproductively because you obviously don't need that, or that's what your mind thinks, and it becomes very difficult to switch on and off just easily like that. So when the hormones, the stress hormones are so high, that's the impact that it has. It can get to such a level that women actually don't see their periods at all. And that's when the ovaries also just shut down and they don't produce what is needed, and the eggs don't grow and you don't get ovulation and the lining does not shed because FSH and LH have come down. So that is what we call hypothalamic associate or gonadal dysfunction. Okay, and I tried to simplify it so that people can understand, but that's just basically it. So stress, yes, has a huge impact, and to some level I end up telling people that, you know what, just take some time off, and even if it means you seek professional help, you do that. There are women who have had to change careers for them to survive. Even if they do manage to fall pregnant, you find that they are so stressed during the pregnancy, then they start develop things also like preeclampsia and all of that, which is hypertension in pregnancy. The baby is not growing, the baby gets growth restricted and all those complications. And you find that they end up delivering even beforehand. I personally have gone through it where I decided to just take the bull by its horns because the biological clock was ticking and I had a career ladder that I needed to climb. And then you look and you want to prioritize between the two and you're like, what exactly do I do? And I'm like, I'm jumping in both boats at the same time. And let me tell you, my very first pregnancy, I was a medical officer, less stress. I went all the way to 41 weeks, 5 days. I like sharing personal stories to show that we are relatable, and these are things that women need to be open about, because women think they are in the boat alone and they are the only ones going through this, and sometimes they think that other people's lives are perfect. Kathy, it's not like that, you know. So I went to 41 weeks, 5 days, my very first pregnancy, less stress. But the moment the moment I was training to become a specialist, I went through pregnancy again. It was an issue of choosing, you know, do I choose career or do I choose family? To a certain extent that even my husband would say, it's like you're focusing on the career more than the family. So that's when I decided, okay, let me have the second born. And it happened to be twins. And obviously twins expected, but I delivered at 35 weeks, which is actually okay for twins. Third pregnancy, I was training to be a super specialist, and I delivered at 32 weeks because I was a full-time student. I was running my own practice. I needed to put bacon on the table. I'm going through a pregnancy. I'm running between practices, running between jobs. It had been such a stressful pregnancy that the baby stopped growing. I had to be booked off, you know, and even with all of that, the pregnancy actually ended up being preterm, and the baby was born 1.85 kgs instead of at least 2.5 if it's a term baby, all the way to 3.5. So those are the impacts of our careers and us, you know, trying to be superwoman. To a certain extent, yes, we can wear the cape, girls, but there are impacts on our reproductive life. The career does have impact on our reproductive lives, and the effects thereof, from struggling to fall pregnant completely to complications even in the pregnancy as well. For now, I'll just end it there.
Thank you so much, Dr. Q, for that. And to all our participants, I'd just like to remind you that this is a session to inform us, to educate us. We are not saying do this or do that, but it's for you to have as much information as possible to make an informed decision. So thank you so much, Dr. Q, for sharing that so much, because I mean, I know myself, I have gone through a journey. When it came to number 2, I discovered certain things. I was like, huh? But before I can go there, Dr. Selina, can you share with us? Okay, let me put it this way. There's a number of ladies that when they say, now I'm ready to fall pregnant or to make babies, and I'm not, I've got a number of people within my networks that this has happened to. Then they go to the gynecologist. Then the next thing, there's fibroids. And I'm like, how? You haven't had the first child. There's cysts. There's all these things. There's endometriosis. There's things that are like, yeah, like Mina, when I grew up, things like fibroids happened to my aunts, my great aunts, but now people that are my age. So can you just share with us, what are these things, endometriosis, PCOS, like there's just stuff. So Dr. Dr. Selina, mute again.
Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay. I mean, you've nailed it on the head. Like I told you, the woman will rock up, she's ticked the boxes, and she's 30 and she's like, it's time to have children because I've done everything else I needed to do. Unfortunately, in the process of actually being female, you probably started your periods when you were like 15 or 12. And as you can look right now, the girls are having their periods earlier. You're seeing that there's a trend that somehow the young girls are having periods much earlier than when we were. Remember, don't even laugh, because we're the aunts now. We might be in denial. We're the aunts, and it's embarrassing, but I have to accept that now and then I have to remember I'm now the aunt with the fibroids. But needless to say, the woman will rock up now, never being checked, never ever having an ultrasound scan, because health was not an issue. She's healthy, so she doesn't need to be checked. By the time she arrives, I always tell my patient, new patient, you are 30, you are black, you have 1 in 3 chances of me finding a fibroid that you know of or you don't know of. So today we're gonna find out you one of the 2 or 3 who has fibroids. More common in black women. Fibroid is just a growth on the uterus, and you either know about it or you don't know about it, depending on whether you're getting symptoms. So how do we even? So you rock up, you're thinking you are in a clean bill of health. Before I do a scan, I said, your age group, having not have any kids, having never been checked before, you have a 1 in 2 or 1 in 3 chance that you will have a fibroid that either has been there, you didn't know about, or that brought you here because your periods have changed. So when I say, how were your periods when you started? How are your periods 10 years later? And then someone will say, yes, doc, they're now heavier, they're now a bit painful, or da 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 da. When you come to endometriosis, because these are things that you ask, people don't come in with the information. You have to ask leading questions. Now, you've had periods for over 10 years now, and your periods might have been heavy throughout, but because you don't know how to quantify what heavy is, because you just assume it is what it is, we all have periods, they're supposed to be painful. That's when the red flags start for me. When your periods start, does it start with the I'm having a discomfort that's leading to a period, and then when the period flows, the discomfort ends? Oh, this pain I'm getting, it's going beyond when, so a day or two, once the period is finished, you still have that pain. Red flags for endometriosis. Endometriosis is when the lining of the uterus is somewhere else in parts of the body within. It's not just placed within, and there are many theories I could break down. Maybe we need to have like a fibroid talk. Maybe we need to have an endometriosis talk, because we're trying to cram everything. So when that woman comes in, never having been seen a gynae, she's married, she has everything, I have to ask leading questions to try and figure out where does she fall in. She will have a fibroid that she knows of or she doesn't. She will have most likely polycystic, because most people will come in and say, now I've suddenly gained weight and I can't explain it. And my periods are now a bit irregular. I would have it, it doesn't follow the clock. And the good thing is now people have apps. We have apps where you can put in and say, it starts here, and it explains. During our time, you just had to remember when it's coming. So you can put on these apps and you can see. So issues of PCOS then comes in, which is an endocrine issue. Hormonally, your hormones are not in balance, and we have to see why. So instead of normally sending an egg out and ovulating every month, you have maybe sent 3 or 4. So in that year, when you, assuming I've had sex for a year, if you have like a PCOS, you only probably sending a good egg 4 times in that year, because your periods, your cycles are prolonged and your periods are very irregular. So those are the things that we sort of have to break down and know where you stand. So sometimes even if there's no plan, I tell my patients, I know you have a career, I know you're doing your MBA, and have you checked your eggs? Have you checked, when do you think you're gonna fall pregnant? And some people assume you are being invasive. You know, some people are like, don't discuss those kind. I'm like, I need to have asked the question of, even when I pick and we wind up deciding the type of contraception for you, if you are getting married next year, the contraception I choose will not be the same as someone who still has 4 years to try and fall pregnant. And remember also, sometimes the misnomer is you assume the contraception has made you infertile. No, the contraception has masked what you already had, because you're getting a foreign hormone and regulating your period. You think it's you. No, ma'am, it's not you. It's just masked things that when we then take it off, people assume the contraception caused that. So it's those things that you, every contraception, individualized. I'm a huge advocate of contraception. But because during our time, you didn't have a choice at which one, you were just jabbed with the injection and you will see through it whether you're tired or you're finish. So you don't have that as so right now you come in and we individualize. When are you thinking of having kids? If you're thinking 35 and beyond, what have you done? Have you made provision? Have you checked whether you have ovarian reserves for that? Why are you using this particular one? Is it doing any benefits? Is it fixing your skin? Is it regulating your mood? Is it making you sad? Not one will be perfect for all of us. Otherwise, we'd all be on it. So unpacking that for the person who arrives and now all of a sudden says, there are cysts. Remember, they are normal cysts. If you're not on contraception, you are supposed to have cysts because you are supposed to ovulate and send an egg out. So when you see a cyst, wait first. Is it a normal cyst? Is it the one that we need to be concerned about? So also our verbal things when we Google and stuff. And I always say, as soon as you see PCOS, people say PCOS. I said, are you putting in the S at the end? The S is a syndrome. When I see cyst, I just see cyst. It's not a syndrome yet. Now I have to ask you, are you having irregular period? Are you hairy and having some kind of acne? Are things happening that I need to now look? Have you suddenly gained weight that you didn't know about, that which is beyond? Are you exercising and you are not seeing any changes as you exercise? Now we're starting to say, are you having cysts? Are you having the syndrome? So always correct the verbs and the things that we say to define. People who wear a lot of labels that don't belong to them. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Selina. That is lovely. I mean, you are right, because we just take on words and then we wear them as a cape to say and diagnose ourselves without being 100% sure. Thank you so much for that insight. Without sounding too gloomy, you know, because we've been talking about what can go wrong, what has gone wrong, and all of that. And just to add a little bit of hope into this situation, I would like to ask the panel, and maybe Dr. Q, you can come in here to say, what options do women now have in order to preserve, if I should use the word, preserve the quality of their eggs? or what options are available that can even be started earlier? And what I mean by that, for example, me personally, I've had assisted conception through IVF, so it's a one example. But I know of earlier than my doctor at the time had mentioned things like, people, if you are younger, you can freeze your eggs. But can you just share with us what options are now available to women who are on the career path but do not want to be, do you know what I'm saying, just to preserve, because we make these decisions much earlier now. But yes, so go ahead.
Thank you, Bonnie. And thank you, Dr. Selina, for that broad overview of all the things that can actually go wrong. One of them, before I speak about options, that I would just like to add and make people aware of. I'll start with the gloom and the doom before I speak of options, because as much as it is sad and we don't want to hear about it, the biological clock is real. It is so real, it's scary. It is so real because we get women coming in saying, and already they are titled prof at the age of 42. They are CEOs at the age of 38. Bravo, all good. And then she sits in front of you and says, Doc, I'm ready. Okay, my darling, you ready for what? I'm ready to start a family. Now we can do it. And we're proud. But then unfortunately now we have to say there is this one box that you were not aware of, or you had put aside for last. And unfortunately, that is the reproductive age. So there is an age to our eggs, and there is an expiry date to our age. To our eggs, sorry. The eggs have an expiry date. And unfortunately, for most women, it is around the age of 35. So once women turn 35, the quality and the quantity of the eggs reduces. And you find that fewer women can still conceive after the age of 35. Once women reach the age of 40, there is higher risks of failure to conceive altogether. There are maybe about 20% of women who can actually conceive after 40. And that's where now most independent, career-driven women are actually opting for to start their families at the age of 40. But unfortunately, only plus minus 20% of them can. Not everybody can start children at the age of 40. And then you find that the quality of the egg, that's the quantity now, quantity of the eggs, the quality of the eggs also reduces. And even if you can fall pregnant, there are high risks that you can have all sorts of congenital abnormalities or DNA abnormalities in the offspring that you bring. It's more like an old door that is now cracking and making those noises. Think of an egg like that, and now you're asking it to open or split and divide and make a human being. It's old. Then you find that maybe only 5% of women can still fall pregnant after the age of 45. Okay, so that is the reality. So when you look at it, really, what is the best age to fall pregnant? The best age to actually consider having babies, believe it or not, is the age of 21. So what are we doing at 21? If you are doing a 3-year diploma or certificate, you just finished, if you finished matric at the age of 18, some of us that went for medicine, you know, it's a 6-year course. We're still in varsity. You finish at the age of 23. You go through internship. You go through da 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 da. Okay, sharp. Okay, but if you want to have 3 kids, in your reproductive life, you want to have a family of 3 kids, and you don't want any intervention, the best age to start is 27, 28. Okay. So that you can be done by 35. If you want to have 2 kids without any intervention of IVF and all of that, then you can start at the age of 30. But whilst you are delaying the time of starting, what I recommend women do is to go in for a checkup, make sure they don't have all these abnormalities. And what I recommend usually is to say, just check the quantity of your eggs. The quality of the eggs can only be tested once you're trying to have the baby, but the quantity is how many are still there. It's like wanting to do a trip from Joburg to Durban and you don't know how much petrol you have. You know, first thing, you go to a garage and fill up your tank, you understand? So if you want to start on the reproductive journey, at least check your reserves. And that is a simple hormone that is called anti-Mullerian hormone, AMH, which I recommend women must at least do once a year, and whilst they are delaying. So don't delay without knowing where you stand. There is a condition called primary ovarian insufficiency. Okay, and that is when women run out of eggs below or before the age of 40. We've had to tell 28-year-olds that unfortunately you cannot conceive naturally and have a biological child. There is about 1% of them that can still fall pregnant naturally, but they run out of eggs before the age of 40, you know, and they struggle to conceive and they have to consider getting donor eggs. Okay, so you won't know when you are 26 whether you are part of that population or not. It's only 1% of the population that goes through primary ovarian insufficiency. It's not that common, and that's why we don't screen for it. But if you can afford AMH once a year, it's plus minus 500 rand, depending where you do it. Just go in, get your AMH checked. If your reserves are still fine, which a gynae checks your ovaries, you still have enough eggs, then you can go another year, and know that you are still safe. But if you know that you are single and you are reaching the ages of 34, 35, there's no prospects, no donor hanging around wanting to telela, you know, all of that. So you may consider that prevention is better than cure. So it's like carrying this bag of seeds and you don't have a field to plant them in as yet. And you know, each time you're walking around, there's a hole in the bag and you keep dropping them seeds. Don't keep walking until the bag is empty. You know, stop where you are, bury them somewhere and keep them, you know, for later where you can. So each month that we menstruate, we lose plus minus 15 eggs from the pool. Okay, they're gone. Net. So every time you see your period, know that your eggs are being lost, you know, from your pool of eggs. They are just going. Okay, so it's very important to know that. So at least for that month, let them not go to waste. Just go on and preserve them somewhere. So how do we do that? That is what is called elective egg freezing, where you know your situation and you just consider, let me have some backup, let me bank my eggs. Whilst they are still of good quality. Some women come at 40 now and they want to freeze their eggs. There's nothing wrong with that. We'll rather have that than nothing whilst the eggs are still there, if you still have them at 40. But mind you that the quality of the eggs at the age of 40 compared to the age of 35, compared to the age of 30 is actually worse. So it is better to save your eggs whilst they are still of good quality as well. 40% of women who fall pregnant at the age of 40 have a risk of miscarriages, for example. So 40%, it's close to half of all the women who fall pregnant at the age of 40 have a high risk of miscarriages. Okay, so that's mostly because of the quality of the egg that is remaining. The eggs, if you can think of it that way, we are born with the eggs, and therefore they are as old as we are. Okay, so if you make a baby at the age of 25, it's a 25-year-old egg. If you make a baby at the age of 35, it's a 35-year-old egg. Okay, maybe even older than that. I always say the eggs are older than us because when we are made, they are also made, but we start counting our age after we are born. So they are actually older than that. They existed even inside the womb. When we are made in our mother's womb, the eggs, I'm giving some egg biology here, and it's very important because it's the actual seed that actually makes the baby. So when we are born in our mother's womb, we are made with plus minus 6 million eggs. And then by the time we are born, we are left with like 4 million, and by the time we start menstruating, we're left with about 1 million of eggs. And we lose throughout our reproductive history, it's about 500,000 eggs, So they reduce from the time we are born. By the time we are 12, we've lost millions of eggs. And every month that we go through our cycle, we are losing 15 to 25 eggs. So that's the importance of the biology of the eggs, or what we expect we are carrying to help us produce offspring. So it is very important to go through, see a fertility specialist, go to a fertility center if you know your situation. And there are even people who are in same-sex relationships who also can consider just freezing their eggs in case they are not sure. Sometimes they are certain that the relationship would work, and then they wake up a couple of years later to realize that, look, it's not working out. Or you would like to consider other options of conceiving. At least you have your eggs backed up. I always call it an insurance. As much as we will pay insurance for our cars, because you never know what's going to happen, you get on the road, have insurance for what is so vital and so important also in the production of your offspring, which will be biological to you. So that is what egg freezing is about. And I would like to discuss the costs as well, because it can also be a limiting or a freeing factor for some people. In my fertility center, it's plus minus 30,000 for you to go through the whole process where we give you the medication. The medication alone is plus minus 12,000 rand for us to be able to take out the eggs. And then the whole process then it takes about 2 weeks to get the eggs out, to grow the eggs and remove them, and then we freeze them for you. And then there's a monthly maintenance fee plus minus 3,000 rand. It depends how many eggs there are, and you can keep them for as long as you are alive. So then there's other options where you get single women, they don't have partners, they can get donor sperms and we help them to conceive. And there's other options where then couples are together, but maybe there's blocked fallopian tubes, or there's been endometriosis that's making them to struggle to fall pregnant. Then we have options of in vitro fertilization, where we do the fertilization outside of the body and then put the baby inside the body, and the woman goes through a natural pregnancy. I'll stop there for now. It's
Thank you so much, Dr. Q, for such an insightful sharing of knowledge. And you know what, I didn't know, like the eggs thing. The eggs thing is like, so thank you so much for that. And I'm hoping that our participants are benefiting from it. So ladies, and I'm looking at the time, can you believe we've got 6 minutes to 11 o'clock? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hand over to Refilwe, who's just going to read a few questions and then fill them to you individually to please answer for the benefit of our participants. Refilwe, go ahead.
Thanks, Bonnie. So I'm going to flight 2 of these questions to Dr. Selina. The first question says, women with excessive hair, like hair growth, is that a hormonal thing, and how can we rectify that? That's the first question. And then the other one is, in terms of the food that we consume, how much of that does it actually contribute to our infertility? And how can we actually, what are the mitigating factors in terms of the food that we consume that we can exercise?
Okay. Can you hear me? Am I muted?
We can hear you.
You can hear. Listen, what you've just asked, I'll start with the first question. Hirsutism is just when you have excessive hair, and sometimes in male distributed areas. Remember, in puberty, you're going to have hair in the armpits, hair around the genital areas, and that should develop with time. Some people will find that they start having like a beard and in areas that are male distribution. Now, sometimes that's familiar. So everybody in the family has that kind of situation, but sometimes it's a symptoms of polycystic ovarian syndrome. So now when you come in, we have to say, is it associated with anything else? Yes, so it can contribute to fertility if it's part of the syndrome of polycystic ovaries. So we have to exclude, is it associated with anything else? Is the hair distribution normal? It's not a familiar thing. Did it suddenly start? And that investigation, you can either come to your gynae or you can go to an endocrinologist to just kind of try and see whether it's hormonally related or there's other things that are contributing. When it comes to food, and I'm sure women have realized that mostly somehow, and I always say we're eating very expensive food all of a sudden. We don't eat morojo from the garden and things like that. And you don't know whether the food, we're eating things that are very high sugar content. We're eating Uber Eats. We're eating things that are very like supposed to satisfy you now, and so that you go and buy again. So when it comes to the foods that we eat, the response becomes, is your insulin normal? So insulin is that part of your body, the hormone that gets released that when you eat, when the sugar is that high, it needs to increase and break it down to normal. And we've seen over the years, things like diabetes or insulin resistance used to be a thing for certain ethnic groups and a certain age, 50 and above. You never hear of young people having this. But because of the diet, how the diet has changed over time and the high sugar content things we eat and a lot of processed foods, if your insulin doesn't or is not responding in a way that it breaks down the sugar and makes it used instead of stored, and you have some kind of baseline insulin resistance, then that's when it becomes an issue. Then it becomes a syndrome where that process makes you gain weight. And then when that fat gets converted, funny enough, it gets converted to estrogen. So we always say when you are overweight, that fat becomes your third ovary. So the body now is confused. There's so much estrogen, then the maturity of the cyst that's supposed to mature every month gets delayed. Then you wind up with what we call irregular periods. So now your period now comes here. But if you lose some kind of weight, then the regularity comes. So that's when the syndrome comes, and it becomes insulin resistance, which later on becomes diabetes. I'm trying to look at time, and I'm not trying to take all the time. I hope that answers your questions.
Yes, thank you very much for that, Doctor. I think, Bonnie, I'm not sure if you still have time just to fly to one last question.
Just flight another question, please. Happy to do that.
Just the last question, also for Dr. Selina. Zintle wants to know, what advice do you give to your HIV positive females in terms of pregnancy? How do you go about advising them and the different options that they can pursue?
You know what? I'm glad that question comes, because people always put HIV as if it's going to have some kind of restriction. If you're HIV positive, you're virally suppressed, you're going for your yearly pap smears, you've done an HPV screen, and the HPV has cleared you, you are treated the same as anyone who's healthy and HIV negative. listen to that again. Treatment, virally suppressed, HPV checked, pap smear checked normal, you take your medication, you do not get treated in any way different because your pregnancy is under control. There's no transmissibility to the baby or to the partner, and you're taking precaution. So if you're following those rules, you're eating healthy and you're getting checked regularly, you actually get treated the same as everyone else.
All right. Thank you so much, Selina, for answering those questions. That's all from my side, Bonnie. I'll hand over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Rufilo, and thank you so much, Dr. Selina and Dr. Qinisile, for actually answering those questions for us, for the wealth of wisdom that you have actually shared with us. And I'm sure that our members are definitely better versions of themselves as a result of this information. And also for me, you know what has been lovely is that there has been information which I didn't know before, And as a result of that, it's like, wow, I now know about the C, which is stress, exercise, and anorexia, which actually does impact the reproductive hormones. And also that it is important to get your annual checkup of the AMH to make sure that you have enough reserves. And most importantly, and before that, to actually recognize that you're an individual and knowing your own health, first and foremost, by going to the gynae and not saying so-and-so had it, so-and-so, having your own personalized reproductive health, a book, if I should put it that way, is actually very, very important. And, I wish we could go on further and share so much, because also there's another question that our president had asked us before, to say how much of male reproductive health actually impacts the bringing in of an offspring. But that seems to be a conversation on another day. And today we're mainly focusing around us as women, about empowering ourselves, but not forgetting that at the end of the day, you know what, it's all good, it's all well. So any parting thoughts? I know, please forgive me, everybody, it will just be 2 minutes. Dr. Q, a passing pearl of wisdom, just for like 60 seconds, and then Dr. Selina, 60 seconds, and we can close the session. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Maybe just to quickly answer your president's concern, it is actually 50% of male fertility issues that affect the whole 2 to tango dilemma that we have. So it does really take 2 to tango. And also to just highlight to the ladies that it's important to have your personal reproductive profile, reproductive checkup. And it starts with you. Do not think that your drinking and smoking and excessive weight gain does not affect your future fertility options. Please start taking care of yourselves, ladies. Think when you drink, think when you smoke. There are impacts. All your lifestyle issues do impact, and there are certain things that are inevitable that you do not have control over, but there are certain things that you have the power to change yourself. So we will help where things just pop up and you don't have control over, but you do also have a role to play. All the best, and have fun when making babies.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me? And thank you so much for, I just want to say the platform is necessary, and the platform is very important, because I always believe when there's a problem, call the professional. I don't want to do things that I didn't get trained to. I don't want to multitask. I want to focus on the things that I excel in. You are nails, call the professional. Come there, let them do it. So if you want information about things, don't ask the gardener about the things that are in the kitchen. Ask the professionals to the questions So know where you're asking, where you're getting your information from. And then if you're uncomfortable with it, just bounce it someone else. So if you're kind of like, I'm not so sure about this, it's important. So know where you're getting your information from. Is it from a professional person? Then I'm happy with that. And with all of that, with all the stuff that women have to go through on a daily basis, don't ever assume that sometimes it's on us. So when the IVF fails, or when there are many times where my hands are tied, where I'm like, I've done all that I can, and maybe we need to step back a bit, and then the baby comes. So sometimes you have to also understand that it's somehow timing, and some people's timings are different. And you cannot always, because the first thing that women do is blame themselves. Maybe the timing is wrong. Maybe that IVF at that time, you've seen it. You go to IVF, next baby happens without the help, but you've been told that you can't. So always trust the timing and wait for your moment as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Selina, for your parting shot. Thank you so much, Dr. Q, for the parting shots. And I hope everyone that has basically joined us today has gained a wealth of knowledge. And to everyone else, we are off going into the festive season. We would like for you to please keep safe. Be vigilant out there. You know, we have had announcements about the fourth wave, about the different variant. So it is, again, we are getting ourselves into a scary time of the year, but we would like to say that Godspeed, be with families, be with loved ones as much as you can. And this is the last conversation for the year, because we are going on a hard close, and we will come back in 2022, and we are looking to having more conversations that result in us being better versions of ourselves, and to be empowered and to be beautiful, beautiful women and goddesses that we are. So to everybody, to the team at YLC, to the executive membership of YLC, to the IWF South Africa community, and to everyone else that has been part of us and our journeys. Oh, and to that little one with that hair. Thank you so much. We love you all. Keep safe, keep well, and have a Merry Christmas and a beautiful and blessed 2022. Goodbye.